Well, it's a pleasure now to introduce a man who is in the news almost all the time, Donald Trump. Not only it's so good to have you with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. So great to be with you.
There's something that I've seen, but you don't get any press on. When you built a great skyscraper in New York, you had the first woman, I guess, was she a building supervisor or was she an engineer?
Right. Well, I had the first woman supervisor, and I was very proud of that.
Yeah.
You're right, I don't get very much credit for it, but they don't like to mention that. But I've had many, many women in top positions, and I'm very proud of it. I think I was sort of one of the first, certainly very early on, and you know, it's something that is so great. And they did such a great job.
Well, you know, I built over 1 million square feet of buildings and stuff. This is a big task. I mean, all those trades.
Yeah.
But she managed all of that.
Right, and that was a long time ago, don't forget. Today you'll have women in charge, and they do a fantastic job. I have women today.
You were the first.
I think I was the first, certainly of a major building in New York City, absolutely.
I want to ask you this. Do you expect to have women in your cabinet and in key positions in your administration?
Oh, absolutely, without question. You know, I probably have 50%, maybe even more than that right now, in executive positions at the Trump Organization, and we're a very big company, very, very successful, and they do a fantastic job. But I have a tremendous number of women working for me at top levels.
They talk about, you know, it's interesting, the Clinton Foundation, I understand there's a disparity in pay between women and men. You're going to make sure that women get paid for equal work with men. You're going to not be any question in the federal government that there's equality, right?
Well, I do that, and frankly, I have women. I have the opposite problem. Sometimes I have women being paid more than men. I have a problem with the men, where they're saying the women are making more money than we are. So yeah, it just works out well, and they have been so incredible. So
what do you look for when you pick employees? What qualifications?
I look for energy. I look for honesty.
Mm-hmm.
You know about honesty.
Sure.
I look for, but you know, they need that energy. Without energy, it just doesn't seem to work to me.
Yeah.
I just see that you need that drive, whatever it is. You certainly need knowledge. I love education when you can get it, but I've had people without great education that have done a great job also. But you, and I think there's a certain instinct that some people have, you know, where you have that ability, whether it's business, where I'm involved, or hitting a baseball or playing sports. You know, there are some people just with a certain ability. If you can find that person, it's a very special thing.
You did a program, Apprentice. One of your famous lines was, "You're fired." You know, I think it's important in business to hire the best people and train them well, but also when people aren't cutting it, you do them a favor to let them go.
That's true. It's so true. Oftentimes they won't do a good job because they don't like what they're doing, or they don't have the aptitude or ability. And honestly, they never love when you let them go. You understand that. It's funny. I've had people with me for 10 years, and I paid them well and everything else. And you can fire them easily, meaning nice and easy, or a little bit rougher, or even quite rough. It doesn't matter. They wake up the next morning, they've been fired. And generally speaking, they're not too happy. In other words, they'll see, you'll mention the name Trump or whatever, perhaps in your case, Pat, but they'll mention the name and they'll say, oh, he fired me, because you're still known to them for firing them. So it's sort of an interesting thing. But oftentimes when somebody's not doing the job, the best thing you can do, not only for yourself, but for them, is to tell them to go find something they like more.
Well, in the Veterans Administration, they didn't serve the needs of veterans, and yet a lot of those guys got bonuses.
Right. Oh, it's terrible.
That's a crime.
One of the worst run enterprises. You take a look. What's happening with the veterans is so sad, and we're working with the veterans very closely. We have tremendous veteran support. I don't know if you know, even the polls are showing us, you know, way, way, way ahead with the veterans. We're going to work with the veterans.
You wouldn't hesitate, though. I mean, if those people are not serving the veterans, if they've been cheating and lying, to fire them. Can you do that under civil service rules? Or
well, in Phoenix, the answer is, in theory, you can't, but I do it anyway. In Phoenix, they have people who got caught stealing, and they couldn't fire them. Okay? They're going through a process right now. So I think it's terrible. Look, the rules have to be changed. The whole government is changed, becomes so bureaucratic. But there's a good example. The Veterans Administration is so poorly run. And with us, it'll
we've
change.
We've got to change the civil service laws in some fashion so that you reward ability and punish insufficient activity, you know. But
that'll happen, Pat. That'll happen.
I might say I was reading an article in the Wall Street Journal. I think the reporter was Kimberly Strassel, and she said Donald Trump knows more about constitutional law than Hillary Clinton. How come? What's the deal?
Well, I think that's right. That was actually a very complimentary article. I appreciated it.
But it's true.
Well, you have to, I mean, when you're doing business, very interesting. When you do as much business as I have, you sort of learn really a lot about a lot. And if you don't know things, you're not going to be doing that. As you said, you built 1 million feet. When you do that kind of work, you get to know everybody. You get to know from the foundations to the plumbers to the sheetrock,
right,
to the carpenters. You know, the whole thing. I mean, you get to know a lot. But yeah, I think she's probably right about that.
Well, you know, but Hillary made statements in that debate concerning the Supreme Court. She was asked, what is the Supreme Court? She said, well, it's an organization representing the whole nation, and their principal task, and I'm putting words in her mouth, I'm paraphrasing, is to look after the little guys. That's not what the Constitution says.
Right. That's right.
Oh, you have.
Well, I thought I gave a good answer, and we talked about religious liberty.
Yeah.
We talked about Second Amendment, meaning I talked about. And I thought Hillary did very poorly in that debate. I thought it was not a good job.
She is a lawyer. I went to Yale Law School ahead of them, but she went to Yale Law School. And the Heller decision, for example, she wants to overturn Heller.
Right.
And she said Heller had to do with keeping guns away from little toddlers.
Right.
That's nonsense.
That's right. It's absolutely right. She was giving that answer, and I'm sitting there saying, what's going on? Look, Hillary, I don't want to say overrated. Why should I say anybody's overrated? But Hillary would do a poor job as president. If you look at the job she's done for our country, if you look at the Middle East and the disaster that is, if you look at New York State, where she was a senator and she was going to bring jobs back to upstate New York, take a look at what happened. It was a disaster.
But you know, Heller, the D.C. law said only people with permits can have guns.
Right.
Permits are hard to get. Even if you have a permit and you have a gun in your house, you have to disassemble it.
Right.
So if a woman's got a gun and a burglar comes in, she's got to go and pick all those parts and put it together. I mean, it makes women terribly vulnerable.
Well, she gave the wrong answer, and I think I straightened the answer out.
Yes.
But she gave the wrong answer, and she wasn't called for it. But that's happened a lot.
Well, if you're president, we're talking about guns and, you know, Supreme Court. So that Heller decision was one. And the law, the Second Amendment, they talk about a well-ordered militia, and then they talk about the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be curtailed. So Heller basically said this has to do with the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, freedom to own guns personally.
Right.
A lot of those judges thought it had to do with the militia.
Right. Well, it's true. And actually, Judge Scalia is the one that was so involved. And I don't know if it was his last decision. It was one of his latter decisions. But, you know, I'm going to replace, as you know, and I've been very strong, he was sort of a role model from the standpoint of what I'm looking to do in terms of replacing our judges. And one of the important things I think about when we think in terms of the Supreme Court, Pat, that is such an important element of this election.
Yes.
Because this president, whoever it may be, hopefully it'll be me, is going to replace 2, 3, could even be 4. I mean, could even be 4 Supreme Court judges. I mean, perhaps more than anyone. I've even heard the scenario could be 5.
You said in Gettysburg today that you would appoint from that list. Is that right?
Federalist Society, vetted very carefully, great scholars, pro-life, very, very fine people, Second Amendment, and, you know, I think a very good list. We have a list of 20 judges, and all been vetted by Federalist Society, and I think, it's gotten great marks.
Well, something else that Hillary did, she took the radical feminist view in relation to abortion, and she didn't back off one iota in that debate, not one. And you called her on partial birth abortion, and she said it's not as bad as you said. But the truth is, it's worse than
Probably
what you said.
worse. It's probably, well, according to her, it wasn't bad at all. I mean, it wasn't even like a little bit bad.
The actual partial birth is the baby is about 2/3 already born in the birth canal. The doctor turns it around to get its head, punches the back of its skull, and then evacuates the brain. It is the most barbaric thing. And to defend that and say that's a woman's right.
And I said it very strongly. A lot of people I must say, I've been called by a lot of pastors, I've been called by priests, thanking me because they said they've never heard anyone explain it quite the way I explained it. And, you know, I'm very happy about the fact that we can get the word out, because it's terrible.
She defended that barbaric practice of partial birth, and then she defended Planned Parenthood, $500 million plus federal dollars.
Right.
It's terrible.
Well, according to the rules of Hillary, you can take the baby at 9 months, and you can imagine what you have to do to that baby to get it out. And you can take that baby at 9 months and you can abort. And a day prior to birth, you could take the baby. And I said it's unacceptable.
Well,
and
that's
a lot of people agreed with me.
infanticide.
A lot of people, even on the other side of that issue, agreed with me on that.
Well, I think the majority of people now, at least fetal viability, beyond that, the majority of women do not stand for abortion on demand. Up to that point, they say, well, I'm pro-choice. You have said you're pro-life. You're unashamedly pro-life.
Yeah, I'm pro-life, and I'll tell you, I see more and more people going that route, and you see it too. You know, when you talked about, as an example, other things where they become less and less popular or more popular, the whole pro-life movement is becoming more and more politically popular in terms of politically popular, which actually surprises people.
Sure.
And you're seeing it too, I think. But it's become more and more standard politically, and I think that's a great thing.
You know, Hillary is playing to women. Are you seeing any shift of women toward you in relation to these issues? Because I would think that the average woman loves children. I have 14 grandchildren. I've got 9 great-grandchildren. I love those children. And to think that you'd want to slaughter those children, it must, the average woman is compassionate and loving.
Well, I'll let you know on November 8th, the evening of November 8th, and we'll see. We'll see. But I think we did very well in the debate. We've gotten great marks. A lot of people said, most people said we won that debate pretty easily. And maybe one of the reasons we won it was pro-life.
Well, I think so.
So it could very well
You were
be.
so well positioned that most people don't even talk about it. They don't even talk about what you did.
And that was the first question. It's very interesting. That was the first question of the evening.
Now, let's talk about your growth plan. Are you going to grow the economy? You said, I think, about 25 million jobs.
Right.
You laid out today in Gettysburg your plan. You want to give us 2 or 3 points of what you're going to do?
Well, one of the things we're going to do is, first of all, I have to say we have to renegotiate trade agreements.
Yeah,
because NAFTA and these trade agreements are just sucking the jobs right out of our country. In Virginia and every other place. I mean, they're just taking our jobs. So we have to renegotiate trade agreements. And if we can't make the right deal, we're going to end it. And I want to be free trade. I'm 100% free trade, but these deals are horrible, what's going on. Now they want to do TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is going to be another disaster.
The gold standard, according to Hillary.
The gold standard. And then all of a sudden it goes from the gold standard to, then she heard me talking about it, and now she goes against it. But if she ever won, she'd sign it in a heartbeat. She'd sign it in a minute. We're going to be substantially cutting taxes, not only for the middle class, but for business. We're bringing it down from 35% to 15%. And that will be such an unbelievable, because our businesses, Pat, are leaving this country because taxes are too high.
Well, they can't compete.
They can't compete. They can't compete. Massive regulation cutting, another problem. You know, one of the things that surprised me most in going around meeting big business owners, small business owners, if they had their choice between the tax cut and the regulation cut, they would take the regulation cut. That's how bad regulations are.
Must is $500 billion drain on the economy?
Oh, it's no much more than that.
More than that?
It is so massive, the amount of money that this country, not even, forget the money, the jobs, the businesses, that we lose because of regulation, and our businesses can't compete.
Well, why do they keep, are they so opposed to this? It looks like it's common sense, huh?
It's almost become an industry. Regulations become an industry.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I mean, one of the things, Pat, we have anywhere from $3 to $5 trillion offshore outside of the country, and companies that we have here can't get the money back. They can't bring it back because of bureaucracy and because of the high tax. And it's billions and it's really trillions of dollars. It's probably at least 3, could be 5.
American companies, they've got to pay federal tax, they've got to have a state tax, sometimes city tax, and all the other taxes that go along. Of course they can't compete.
And on top of that, they have a big bureaucracy where even getting the paperwork done is almost impossible. So we're going to free that up.
Obama was actually, I understand he had about 2,600 regulations in the hopper that he's personally going to put in before he gets through his term. Is that correct?
It's okay. He'll do it with the executive order, and I'll undo it with an executive order. It's the only good thing about his executive orders. You can undo them very rapidly.
So your plan is, when you take office, you will undo those executive orders?
Well, we have no choice. Look, whether it's on the border or regulation, we have no choice. We have to. The regulations are killing our businesses. Our businesses can't make it. They can't expand. You can't start new businesses today. It's very hard to start a new business because of regulation. So we're going to cut the regulations down very substantially. Look, you need them for safety, and you need them to a certain extent for the environment, to a great extent.
Certainly.
But we are so overregulated that our businesses can't compete.
Well, I know I started an IPO that was rather successful, and right now Sarbanes-Oxley makes it so difficult that the average company wants to go to London or someplace besides New York.
Very tough.
New York has lost a lot of businesses because of that.
We're losing it, and we're losing it rapidly. So it has to happen.
In military matters, there's been proposed a no-fly zone over Aleppo and those beleaguered cities in Syria.
Right.
And I don't know if Hillary is for it or not. I think she said she may have been for it.
I don't think she knows if she's for it or not.
Yeah.
Look, the whole thing with Syria is crazy. Syria wants to fight ISIS. Russia is now with Syria. Iran, which we made a powerful nation in a matter of moments. I mean, Iran was in big trouble. With Kerry and Hillary, we made them. This Iran deal is one of the worst deals ever. So they're powerful. So they're now with Syria. We want to fight ISIS. But you're fighting ISIS, and you're fighting Syria, and you're fighting Russia, and you're fighting Iran. We have people, they don't know what they're doing. And then we go into Mosul and we tell them we're going to go attack Mosul. For 4 months we've been saying we're going to attack. So everybody in Mosul that we wanted, meaning the leaders of ISIS, have gone. Yeah. And you see what's going on. You see how badly that fight is going. They're using human shields. They're all dug in. What about the element of surprise, where we go in and we do the job the right way? But we've been hearing about Mosul now for months that we're going to attack. And they've been plenty ready, and it's turning out to be a very tough deal. It's so sad the way our country is run. It's so sad the decisions we make. But there's a decision. If you want to go into Mosul, you don't tell people for 4 months. Now they're having a hard time, and they're really dug in. And the people that we wanted, the leaders of ISIS, are gone.
Would you keep the same defense team in place, or do you find that you've got other people in mind?
I think we'd put new people in, but look, I'm sure some of the generals are excellent. I have over 200 generals and admirals endorsing me. I'm sure some of the generals are excellent, but I think they have very poor leadership, and I think it's being run by Obama.
There's no question. We've made some really serious matters. You know, apparently there was a great deal of deception. There have been so many lies, you know. That Obamacare, if you like your doctor, you can keep him. If you like your health plan, you can. Total lies. And you mentioned in one of the debates, Gruber was laughing about the fact that he was lying with what he was doing. But there have been lies in regard to the Iran nuclear deal. One of his
lies on everything having to do with Obama. How about Jonathan Gruber, the architect of Obamacare, was laughing at how stupid the American people are for agreeing to this, for doing this. And that was a year ago, 2 years ago, and now he's gone. Obamacare is a disaster. Rates are going up 60, 70, 80%. The deductibles are so high you can't use it. It's a terrible thing. And we're going to repeal it and replace it, by the way.
One last question. I know you got to do a rally. There have been so many lies. Accepting national security, which is a totally different ballgame, Would you make a pledge not to lie to the American people as president?
Oh, I think it's a great pledge. I think it's a great pledge. And, you know, it's a pledge that I would like to make. But I will say this, some of the, well, maybe you just don't say anything. As an example, with Mosul, with the way they've handled
Of
that
course.
mess.
Well, that's national defense.
Maybe, and I know I understood and you said except for the national security, because you have to do sometimes what you have to do for the safety of our people and our nation.
Sure.
But no, you don't want to lie to the American people. You know, Obama lied about Obamacare. In many ways, he lied. Frankly, if he didn't lie, he could have never gotten it through because the Democrats went along because they actually believed him.
Mm-hmm.
They're very unhappy with it. Obamacare is falling of its own weight, but we're going to terminate it. We're going to repeal it and replace it.
I appreciate so much you being here. Donald, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pat.
God bless
Thank you.
you.